Okay, good evening, everyone. I think we're good to go. Starting in less than a minute. Right, go candy. Okay, let's start. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Hey, good evening, everyone, or good morning, wherever you are in the world. What we're doing in this series is we're going through chapter by chapter of the Vissudhimagga. Just give a kind of an overview. Vissudhimagga, just to recap the provenance of the work, it's a medieval Sri Lankan commentary by Buddhaghosa that is a really major source in Theravada countries for study of Buddhism, and is translated into English under the title Path of Purification by Nyanamoli. And this is copy I'm using, but if you look for it, you'll find many different covers. It's been republished many times with different covers, so your mileage may differ in that regard. And what we're doing today is chapter 10, the meditation on the immaterial states. This is the next to last chapter in the section on samadhi, dealing with samatha meditations. And this is dealing with the 4 arupa jhanas. We often talk about the 4 jhanas, but those are the 4 rupa jhanas, the jhanas or meditations on form, and these are the meditations on the formless. There are 4, beginning with the base of boundless space, then the base of consciousness, the base of nothingness, and the base of neither perception or non-perception. They're sometimes considered extensions of 4th jhana, and this is not explicitly stated in the Vissudhimagga, but he does make the point that they have the same jhana factors, that is, the 2 factors of equanimity and ekaggata, or singularity of mind. These jhana factors are shared by 4th jhana and the immaterial jhanas. As this the general overall approach of the Vissudhimagga is to give primacy, I would say, to kasina meditation. So it does here. It talks about entering the formless jhanas by first going into a jhana on a kasina, which is a visual object, a nimitta, such as a red disc or a blue disc, the color kasinas, or an elemental kasina like earth or water. And one mentally extends the kasina to as great an extension as one can, even to, it says in the text, even to the limit of a world system or beyond, and then remove it by paying attention to space instead, the space covered by the kasina. And this is the only method really treated in this chapter, but there are at least 2 other approaches for exploring the formless states. One of them, Buddhaghosa alluded to in the section on um, loving kindness, metta meditation, that if you extend the Brahma Vihara of loving kindness or compassion to infinity, may all beings be well and happy, and you're radiating it into space, then if you cease paying attention to the metta, to the theme of the meditation, and just pay attention to the space, then you now meditating on boundless space. The third method is a variant found in the Chula Sunyata Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya that deals with progressively removing some aspects of reality by beginning with ordinary consciousness of your surroundings, which they call contemplation of village. Then you remove all human constructions, houses and roads and so on, and pay attention only to the natural environment. That's contemplation of forest. Then you remove all living things like vegetation and just pay attention to the earth. And then when you remove the earth, you're contemplating boundless space. And I pinned a comment in the comments. I've done a guided meditation on this method, which is adapted from the Chula Sunyata Sutta, and you can find it on our website. Buddhaghosa spends some space explaining what's meant by removing the kasina, and you'll see this is the common to all three methods, that you remove something from your awareness and pay attention to what's underneath, and that's really key. And he says removing the kasina is not like rolling up a mat or putting something away. It's not, you're not destroying the kasina in any way or forcibly removing it. You're just ceasing to pay attention to it. So it's no longer in your perception or in your consciousness. You're paying attention only to the underlying space. And similar with the other methods, it's a successive progress of non-attention. He also says that boundless space, entering boundless space, is one of the aids to that is contemplating the danger or the unpleasantness of matter, of form, of things. They're a source of dukkha. So removing a desire for material form, when then of any kind, objects, then one just pays attention to space, which is empty. And then when you're contemplating boundless space, all that exists is in your perception, your subjective world. All that exists is your consciousness filling infinite space. So the next step is to cease paying attention to space and rest only in boundless consciousness. And then to cease paying attention to consciousness and rely on nothing at all. So this is nothingness. So this is the contemplation of emptiness or voidness. But that's only the third stage. There's still a fourth stage, which is the most subtle of all, which is neither perception nor non-perception. So it's when even emptiness or nothingness is too busy for you, then you can take that one more further step. And it's difficult to define. Buddhaghosa spends some time talking about it. And he makes a difference here between the other stages. In the way he describes entry into this space is not directly a removal like in every previous stage. It's contemplating the peacefulness of the base of nothingness. You're sitting in the base of nothingness and you contemplate the peacefulness of it, and just allow the mind to move on. And he gives the analogy. He says you contemplate the peacefulness of it, but without any desire to attain it or remain in it. And he gives an analogy which is a king is riding on an elephant, and he passes a group of workmen dressed in loincloths, covered in dust, working on building some construction. And he may, in his mind, he may admire and approve the skill and diligence of the workmen, but it doesn't occur to his mind to give up being a king and join the work crew. So this makes it the distinction between seeing the benefit or the peacefulness of nothingness, but not being attached to it, not desiring it, and letting the mind become even more subtle. He talks about this title, neither perception or non-perception, neva sanya na sanya, as meaning that coarse perception or ordinary perception is not present, but there remains a very subtle perception. And he gives a couple of further similes to explain this, which is one of the things you'll find a lot of in the Vissudhimagga, are these similes from ordinary life that are used to illustrate Dharma principles. And he says, if there's a elder monk and a novice, and the novice has oiled the bowl of the elder monk, and he tells the elder monk, I have given you oil, and the elder monk says, very good, fill up my oil jar, will you? And the novice says, I can't, there's no oil. So is there oil or there isn't? And then another example similar, a novice monk and an elder monk, and they're walking together, and they're ahead of them is a puddle of water, and the novice says to the elder monk, be careful, venerable sir, there's water. And the monk says, oh good, will you fill my water flask? And the novice says, there is no water. So in these cases, there is something, there's in some sense you could say the oil or the water exists, but not in the ordinary sense of utility. I think neither perception or non-perception could be defined as samsara reduced to its bare minimum. This is the least amount of samsara you could possibly have and still not be in nibbana. Is in a state of neither perception or non-perception. Also, I'll comment on Buddhaghosa's approach, which is typical for his treatment of these meditations, is that he sets a high bar. He says you have to have complete mastery of jhana in not just being able to enter it, but the 5 ways, entering it at will, emerging from it at will, and so on. Of 4th jhana, you have to have complete mastery of 4th jhana before you do boundless space, and then you have to have complete mastery of boundless space before you do boundless consciousness, and so on. So he always sets this kind of high bar, but I would suggest that it's possible to explore these states of mind even without full mastery of them. And it's quite worthwhile to experiment with these formless abidings. It's a very peaceful meditation. And as I said, there are different ways of entering it. It's always done by removal or non-attention to some aspects of ordinary reality. It can be done step by step, and you are always looking at what's left, which is an important and interesting point, that meditation in general, any kind of meditation, should best be thought of as a simplification and a purification of the mind, not of gaining something new or exotic. So boundless space is always present. The mind always has a basic boundless space underneath everything, but we don't see it because of the multitude of sense impressions and so on. But if we make that quiet, and we pay attention to what's underneath, then we're aware of the space. Then if we cease to pay attention to space, consciousness remains underneath that, and so on. So there's nothing really more to say on this chapter. It's a fairly brief chapter, and although it's profound, really the actual treatment of it is pretty straightforward. Next week will be the last section on the samatha meditations, and it kind of wraps up with a few random meditations, sort of the etc. chapter, you might say. And let's see, I'm just looking at the table of contents. I can tell you what they are. Yeah, there are two meditations dealt with. The perception of repulsiveness in nutriment, that's kind of a fun one, and the definition of the four elements, meditation on the elements, and then there's a conclusion wrapping up the theme of samadhi or concentration. So we'll leave that for this week's offering, and I'll have a look at what's going on in the chat. Just let me get that up to where I can read it. Okay. First question, Venerable Ajahn, is the Gandhava and the Patisandhi Chitta the same thing, or are they different? If different, in what way? When does the Gandhava arise? Is it in the Patisandha or another Chitta stage? Okay, that's actually a very big, it's an interesting question, and it's a big question. There's actually a lot of different interpretations of this. And in case some people don't know what he's referring to, the Patisandhi Chitta is the Chitta or the consciousness moment of rebirth, and it's cited that way in the dependent origination because of Sankara's Patisandhi Chitta, because of Patisandhi Chitta Namarupa. The Gandhava is a mysterious term that occurs in different contexts in the suttas. In the context of rebirth, there is a passage that occurs, I think, in 2 or 3 places, describing the rebirth of a being as occurring when the 3 things come together: the seed of the father, the blood of the mother in her time, and the Gandhava seeking rebirth. And it's not explained. Even the commentary is quite vague about it as well, and there have been different interpretations given. In the Abhidharma Kosha, which is a Sarvastivadin text, there is a description of the Gandhava as a kind of a spirit that travels when a person dies. It travels to the place of rebirth, where the mother and father are copulating, and it enters in the womb at that moment. But the commentary to the Theravada commentary to that text actually says that's a wrong interpretation without giving a correct one. So it's quite mysterious. The use of the word Gandhaba has also two other uses that don't seem at first glance to be related. One is a class of heavenly beings, the heavenly musicians are called Gandhabas. And the other use is in the Samyutta Nikaya. There's a Gandhaba Samyutta that talks about the Gandhabas as living in the forest and feeding on the scent of flowers. So they're kind of little fairies or pixies. There's three quite different, separate uses of the word. So I can't really answer that question directly because there isn't a clear answer to how the Gandhava relates to the Patisambhicutta. I don't think it's meant to be the same thing. Next question. Hi, Ajahn Pundawa, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. Can you explain the difference between methods of stilling the mind and the specific way they are to be implemented? Majjhima 20. Yeah, this is a sutta that deals with the subduing of restless thought. And there's 5 methods, and they're graded. I won't remember the order that they all go in now. But there's 5 methods that should be tried successively. I think the first one is replacing a coarse thought with a more subtle one, or a wholesome thought or an unwholesome thought with a wholesome one. And then there's contemplating the danger in the thought process. Then there's gradually quieting or subduing the mind, just by increasingly trying to make the mind quiet gradually. What's the 4th one? I can't recall it right now. But then the last one is forcibly subduing the mind. What is meant by a palm leaf with a streak? I'm not sure. I don't know what that refers to. Unless it's, I'm just kind of guessing here, but does it refer to writing? Like one of the early forms of writing was to scratch palm leaves with the stylus. Would it be accurate to say the highest form of meditation? Oh, excuse me, I've lost the. Let me try that again. I've lost the page. Okay. Would it be accurate to say the highest sort of meditation is severing the link between attention and all sense spaces, so there's no more change going on, and attention is free and without an object? I don't know about that. Attention without an object doesn't really make sense. what we're talking about today's theme, meditation on the formless, there's meditation on nothingness, but then the object is nothing. There's still an object of consciousness, of nothingness. Uh, I think it's an abstract concept that you hear sometimes, consciousness without an object. I don't think that really makes sense. And the appearance of a snake giving fear in chapter 10, example of formless. I don't know what you're referring to. Can you be more specific? I don't recall the example of a snake giving fear here. You referred to chapter 10 of this book. Oh, I see. I think I know if he's talking about simile of man pursued by a snake, flees from it as fast as he can, and if he sees in the place he has fled a palm leaf with a streak painted on it, or a creeper or a rope or a crack in the ground, he is fearful, anxious, and will not look at it. Yeah, this is kind of an obscure. There's a series of these metaphors here. I see also where this palm leaf of the streak comes in. I've got it now. He's talking about it's kind of an obscure metaphor, but he's talking about removing attention from material realm, and specifically from the kasina. Just as a man is afraid of a snake, and then he doesn't want to look at a palm leaf with a streak on it. So the image of a snake. So you see the danger in material form, and you turn away even from the refined kasina object. The implication of these metaphors, there's a series of them all very similar, is in a gradual turning away from coarse objects to more refined ones. This is another way of expressing that idea of successive non-attention. Can you please help me understand the nature of Buddhas across world systems and eons? They follow archetypal life. You expect they expound Dhamma similarly with similar suttas. Yes, they all the stories and texts we have about Buddhas in previous times, they do follow a very archetypal pattern. Their lives follow certain themes that are very similar, but they're not identical, and there's some specific ways in which they differ. For example, one of the statements the Buddha made about the previous Buddhas was that some previous Buddhas never laid down a formal vinaya for the monks, and their teaching died out in a few generations. But those Buddhas which laid down a vinaya for the monks, their teaching lasted a long time. It makes sense. It means they established an institutional form that survived through the generations. So since there are differences, I don't think we could expect that their teachings will be absolutely identical. They'll have the same themes, but they wouldn't be worded in the same way, or follow the exact same pattern. When attention is stopped and not constantly analyzing objects, time logically stops with a space. No space-time, no change in spatial and temporal locations, leaving no room for suffering. Suffering is a function of time. Yeah, the Dhamma is akaliko, it's timeless. Um, time, time and space are aspects of the samsaric world, underlying framework, actually, I would say, of the samsaric world. So the dukkha is inherent in these things. It's actually a big topic um, that I have done talks about in the past about space and time. There's quite a lot that can be said about that. Okay, so I think we'll make an end now. And if you want to read ahead, chapter 11 next week, Nutriments and Elements, I think is the title of the chapter. So thank you for coming by, and we'll see you again.